I always hate to explain to you young people. Back in 1985, before most of these young people were born, Gina and I were in Mexico, and we were down in the Yucatan at what was then our just beginning boot camp for Mexico. And our sightseeing day was in Merida. We had been to the ruins. We went to Merida to shop, and it won't be quite the same for these guys, but as we were going through this open market, there was a guy that had beautiful lace tablecloths, beautiful. And I forget what he wanted for them. Doesn't make much difference. He was trying to sell us one. His price came down multiple times, and I said, "Nope, we're missionaries. We don't have much money." And as we walked away, he ran up behind us and said, "We take MasterCard." Now, back in 1985, that wasn't as common as it is today. Anyway, open markets. In Brazil, years ago, when Gina and I did the Brazil boot camp, there was a town called Castanhal between Belém and where the boot camp was in San Miguel. And we were running the boot camp, and so it was the largest open market we could find. And so we would go there. And of course, you've all been to open markets. You know, there's booth after booth after booth. Many of the booths have exactly the same thing. Some don't. But we went into that market, and we walked into the center of the market, and there was a gentleman there who was willing to speak English or do the best job he could to speak English with Gina. He would teach her what the words were or what the fruits were in Portuguese. And we were buying for 120, 150 people for boot camp. And so, his stand didn't have enough fruit for 150 people. But he would run all over the market, send his son, and they would come back and they would gather 150 of everything. And he would then go back and pay all those people, and we didn't have to do it. He was willing to work with us, did a great job. Gina went to him. They saw the truck coming. Of course, we had a Toyota Duplo, and they knew when that truck came to the market what we were about to do. We never left without the truck being full, and Gina walked right to that guy every time, and he was thrilled. In La Concordia, the market, they've got two markets in La Concordia, one that's open every day, one that's open just 2 days a week, but in the middle of the La Concordia market is a guy who fixes chainsaws and weed eaters. What's he doing in the middle of the market? And when he fires up whatever he's working on, you have to yell at the person next to you to determine what it is you want to buy. And Gina did the same thing there. And the people, often the people there work with us and try very hard. And there's also in the market oftentimes a guy that fixes something like sewing machines. You ever seen the sewing machine guy in the open market? Everybody's hawking their wares. Now, when Gina goes to La Concordia, and Leah was with her a couple years ago, Leah Sargent was with her, and they would buy the fruit. And of course, they went to a certain lady too, and the lady gave Gina a piece of fruit as a sales pitch, so she'd buy something else later, I'm sure. But anyway, she handed one to Leah and said, "This is for your daughter." Anyway, but the sewing machine guy, he sits in the back. If you walk through the market, everybody's holding this up. I got onions, I've got peppers, I've got tomatoes, I've got whatever. But the guy that's fixing the sewing machines, and it could be something else. It could be the guy that sells parts for the stove. But, he's not out there hawking his wares. He's just sitting in the back quietly. He's there if you need him. But you've got to choose to walk over to him and to participate in what he's selling. You guys all know what it's like to walk through an open market, to listen to the people's voices calling out to you, "Hey, come over here." And like I said, back there in the third row on the left, you see a stall where the trader is not quite the same. He's quiet compared to most, but he's ready to make a special offer to you. If you look in Isaiah 55, the first 3 verses, God uses the picture of a marketplace to explain his incredible offer to us. And he says this, Come and drink, even if you have no money. Come take your choice of wine or milk. It's all free. Listen to me, and you will eat what is good. You will enjoy the finest food. Come to me with your ears wide open. Listen, and you will find life. Centuries later, Jesus, in John chapter 7, applied those same words to himself. Anyone who is thirsty may come to me. Christ is calling to attract our attention. He's only one voice among the many. But he's inviting each of us to come over to his stall where he offers to satisfy our deepest thirst. Jesus is calling all of us. Well, this morning I got a story about geese. Look at the birds. They don't need to plant or harvest or put food in barns because your heavenly Father feeds them, and you are far more valuable to him than they are. Next fall, you guys don't live up north, so won't see this, but next fall, when you see geese heading south for the winter, flying along in a V formation, you might consider what science has discovered as to why they fly that way. As each bird flaps its wings, it creates uplift for the bird immediately following. By flying in a V formation, the whole flock adds at least 71% greater flying range than if each bird flew on its own. In a church, people who share a common direction and sense of community can get where they are going more quickly and easily because they are traveling on the thrust of one another. When a goose falls out of formation, it suddenly feels the drag and resistance of trying to go it alone and quickly gets back into formation to take advantage of the lifting power of the bird in front. If we have as much sense as a goose, we will stay in formation with these people who are headed in the same direction as we are. When the lead goose gets tired, it rotates back into the formation and another goose takes its place and flies point. No church community should have only a few people doing all the work. It's sensible to take turns doing demanding jobs, whether with people or with geese flying south. Geese honk from behind to encourage those up front to keep up their speed. In a church, we should continually encourage one another rather than criticize and tear down. Finally, and this is most important, when a goose gets sick or is wounded and falls out of the formation, two other geese fall out with that goose and follow it down to lend help and protection. They stay with the fallen goose until it is able to fly or until it dies. And only then do they launch out on their own or with another formation to catch up with their group. In church, we should surround the sick and wounded with love and care until they rebound and return to do the same for others.